The purpose of this presentation is to provide you with a synopsis of my personal and professional development Stage 3 PPD consultancy project. And the title is Managing Congestion and Carbon Footprint in the University of Greenwich, here at Medway campus, with Sustainable Green Transport and Travel Plan. I'll quickly run you through the components of this PPD3, but first, a brief background. Travel and transport is one of the prime sources of pollution and congestion. Its impact can be both local and global. Certainly, it wasn't one of my considerations when I applied to the University of Greenwich, because I found myself, when my application came through, 26 miles away from home. Well, when I first made my first journey to the university, I had two choices. One was to go by train, and the other was to go by car. I took the former. When I got to the station, I found that a return journey cost over £24, and for a student, that wasn't a very sustainable option. However, on my second trip, I decided to drive. And when I came to the campus, I drove around this campus over 30 minutes looking for a place to park. All this, you can see from the diagram, they were all chock-a-block taken. All the spaces were taken. I ended up back at the security gatehouse, and one of the security officers advised that I go over to Dockside and park my vehicle. What is this project about, you may want to ask? Well, it's about finding a possible way, fair to all, of managing congestion here at the University of Greenwich in Medway. It's also about calculating the carbon footprint of different travel modes, and of course, making recommendations on bringing these carbon emissions to some acceptable limits. Can the university deal with the problems of congestion, travel, and transportation to reduce its carbon footprints by at least 25%, as recommended by the Higher Education Funding Council for England? What are the benefits or disbenefits to the generality of stakeholders? What is the university's strategic policy on dealing with stakeholders? For instance, how might the implementation of these changes on parking affect neighbors in the university? How will these plans align with the local council's policy? And how might a variance between the university's policies and the local policy be resolved? How should the University at Medway align its corporate objective with the overall objective of the University of Greenwich as it applies to transportation and green travel? Well, what I did, I observed a proposed plan to manage congestion from a student's perspective in order to determine the efficacy of the plan process and to know if it meets best practice. I also calculated carbon footprints of travel in the university based on information provided by staff and students in travel surveys. I delved into the financial implication to the university to know the cost of the project. And then I put all of this into a Gantt chart to find the timelines of the activities and have an overview of the progress of the proposed plan. This is a sample of the Gantt chart I made, and I found there were over 56 activities on this project. It was not a simple one. I found a high number of staff and students who are not local. Yeah, they live in London and further away from Medway, and the geographical information survey data here shows that's Medway there in the middle, and all these red dots are students who live further away from the university. Also, a GIS also showed that member of staff, that's the university, and all these yellow dots are member of staff who live further away from the campus. And this accounts for a possible choice of a sustainable mode of travel. I found also the demand for space by vehicles was over 2.5% to 3 vehicles to a single space, resulting in heavy congestion during peak period. This table shows the demand for space by vehicles done by Excel. It was an automated number plate recognition survey which was done by Excel, and it shows clearly over 2.5% of vehicles, 2.5 vehicles to a single space. I also found, from that same survey, we found the total vehicle movement, vehicles coming in and vehicles going out. On that survey, we saw members of staff who were registered in our permit system and students who were also registered in our permit system. And we also found a pattern of stay. Because what we did was we found between less than 15 minutes and just under 10 hours of the pattern of stay of vehicles. We found the total number, the carbon footprint of students and staff who travel to the university, and it was ridiculously high, 1,700 kilocarbons per person here at the university in Medway. I found many varying opinions from both staff and students, too numerous to mention here, on how to manage this congestion and the emission of the University of Greenwich. Students were not aware of how much carbon they emit and the necessity to reduce these emissions. Some students were not even aware of the subsidy on transportation made by the university to encourage greener and more sustainable modes of travel. At the time of this writing, however, I found that, the results, the subsidy was not available. However, I found that the university subsidized this transport to a big deal. I also found that the project was running seriously behind schedule. And at the time of writing, key measures to implement this project had not been signed by the local council and the landlord. Unfortunately, Excel, who is key to this project, did not give an accurate analysis and accurate assessment from their ANPRO survey. A brief overview of the data collections I made. I used primary data, a student survey that I prepared and analyzed. I also used secondary data from previous survey, staff survey that was done. And then from the transport department, I used official documents, physical data, and I compared this result with other universities in the UK and in Europe, in the wider Europe. I also observed members of staff senior management meetings. How might they approach this problem of congestion here at the university? Is this the corporate identity of the University of Greenwich? Or is it this? Surely, this cannot be the corporate image of our university here at Greenwich. I think a lot has gone redeemably wrong on the project, and some recommendations here may chime with you. First, critical success factors from a project management perspective relating theory to practice may have been ignored by the authorities. There wasn't clear enough deadlines. Time limits should be made clearer to all involved in the project. Resource responsibilities were not clear enough for each task that I put on the Gantt chart. There was too much reliance on external sources. For example, outsourcing tasks that could have been done by the universities. And these organizations were not responding as quickly enough when they are needed. Excel, for instance, and Daniel Johnson, the architects. And this leads to a delay in disseminating the result to the landlords, Chatham Maritime Trust, who were supposed to approve this project. And they have been the biggest problem in executing the project. They haven't been supportive of the whole project of mitigating and reducing the congestion and consequently carbon emissions. There wasn't enough done on stakeholder management. More information should be given to the key stakeholders in and around the university. There should be sufficient time for reviews and task management. In conclusion, therefore, the staff and student surveys show that 85% of students and over 99% of staff live outside the university, accounting for high commuting. The University of Greenwich, however, was found to have policies and procedures in place to monitor and manage rising unsustainable travel pattern in its premises that may result in high carbon emission. The outgoing VC, Baroness Tessa Blackstone, signed a sustainable policy that includes green travel. There is an excess of vehicle well over and above the capacity of this site. More staff and students in Medway travel further away from routes that are not covered by frequent public transport. And because of this infrequent public transport, because of this, Medway campus exerts the highest number of carbon footprint. Currently, there's pressure from the landlord and from Medway Council, and in future, there will be from neighbors. Household use of personal cars is on the rise. Measures must be put in place to mitigate the use of these unsustainable modes of transport to university in order to maintain a good corporate identity. The university bus service is a financially unsustainable option for the university. It is too expensive, and the university is not necessarily responsible for providing transport to us. If you have been, thank you very much for listening. Any questions? Oh, that's good then.
You did mention
Yeah.
What were they?
For a project to be successful.
Yeah, I understand the critical success factors.
Yeah.
Just what were they in the case of this project?
Managing students, managing the stakeholders. Students were not made aware of the consequences of their mission. Yeah? Students were also not informed at the point of applying to come to the university on things like, we have 3 campuses, you're going to be studying in Medway, so if you live in London, you might as well start thinking about moving over to Medway so that you reduce commuting. You know, these factors were, these are project management things that the university and the authorities should have implemented from the beginning.
Unless I missed it, you didn't reach a clear conclusion as to what the best solution would be. Did I get that right or not?
You did get it right. Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet in this project. There's no one single solution that you can throw there and the problem is solved. And that is why we have to keep up on top of it. And that's one of my recommendations. You need to be, the university needs to start doing something, because an attitude of not doing something is not acceptable. It's a policy of the university on sustainable modes of travel. So the university must start something and find out how efficient it is and improve on it.